Picture this, a sunny afternoon garden party, the kind where everyone expects polite smiles, a few photos, and maybe some talk about charity work. Reporters show up with their notebooks ready for a nice, quiet story. Princess Charlotte would be there looking sweet. Prince George would probably be fidgeting in his fancy jacket. Princess Catherine would look perfect, as always, and Prince William would say something nice about the cause. That was the plan. That's what everyone thought would happen. But then William stood up to speak, and suddenly the whole game changed. Right there, with the breeze blowing and palace staff looking confused, he dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. He announced that Princess Charlotte would start her official duties as a crown representative, not someday in the future, but right now. The crowd gasped. Journalists fumbled for their phones. Even the palace insiders looked shocked because this wasn't on any schedule, and nobody had been told beforehand. Now, royal announcements usually follow a very strict rulebook. There's always a press release first. The king's office gets involved. Everyone coordinates so it looks like the whole family is on the same page, even if they're secretly not getting along. That's the performance they put on for the public. So when something this big happens without King Charles and Queen Camilla even being there, without a single word from them, and without them being mentioned in the speech at all, it's not a mistake. It's a clear message. And their complete silence afterward, no supportive statement, no kind words from Clarence House, nothing at all, that silence is actually louder than any speech could be. It tells you everything you need to know about what's really going on behind the scenes. What makes this even more interesting is everything that happened before this moment. For months, there were quiet rumors floating around about William having secret meetings with important Commonwealth leaders. People whispered about Catherine taking on special advisory roles that usually go to much older royals. And there were even talks about Princess Charlotte getting media training at an age that surprised everyone, even the people who work inside the palace. These weren't big, loud rumors that everyone was talking about openly. They were the kind that palace officials would deny if anyone asked directly, but they kept popping up anyway. And they all seemed to point in the same direction. Someone was planning something big. And the person watching all of this most carefully was Camilla, who had plenty of reasons to be worried. Here's why this whole situation is so tense. Camilla spent years, actually decades, working to change how people saw her. She started out as the most controversial figure in Charles's life, the other woman, and she worked incredibly hard to transform her image into queen consort. That took huge amounts of patience, careful strategy, and a lot of smart PR management. She survived the affair scandals, the nasty comparisons to Princess Diana, and all the public criticism. She finally made it to the top. And just when she reached the position she had fought so hard for, just when Charles finally became king after waiting his whole life, the ground started shifting right underneath them. The truth is, William and Catherine are now pulling in bigger crowds than the king himself. Public opinion polls show they're the most trusted members of the entire royal family. Every time they appear somewhere, it generates worldwide attention. Meanwhile, Charles, who should be enjoying his reign after all those decades as heir, seems to be pulling back. Palace insiders say he's become unstable as his official duties have decreased. He's canceled events, citing exhaustion. His advisors initially tried to pass it off as just a normal break after a tough first year, but the people closest to him felt there was something deeper going on. Charles was frustrated. He felt overshadowed. Everywhere William and Catherine went, they got these amazing, warm receptions that Charles, with his more distant personality and the ongoing debates about Camilla, just couldn't seem to match. So you have this really difficult situation. A king who's struggling, a queen who's watching her hard-won position get pushed aside, and a prince and princess of Wales who are moving forward with what looks like a very deliberate, carefully thought-out plan. Behind closed doors, the tensions must have been incredible. Reports say Charles argued with his senior advisors about how to handle William's rising popularity. Some sources even claim that Queen Elizabeth, in her final months, urged Charles to prepare for a smooth transition to William. She apparently saw where things were heading and wanted the handover managed properly. But Camilla opposed any change that didn't keep her and Charles at the very center. And you can understand why, from her point of view. She didn't go through everything she went through just to become a footnote while her stepson and his wife take over the whole institution. But here's the thing about institutional power. It doesn't really care about personal feelings. The monarchy's survival depends on public support, on staying relevant, on connecting with people in a way that makes them feel the institution is worth keeping. And right now, William and Catherine are delivering that in a way Charles and Camilla simply aren't. The public has made its preferences very clear. The media has followed suit. Foreign ambassadors are now reaching out to Kensington Palace instead of Clarence House. Even staff members who were once loyal to Charles and Camilla are shifting their attention to the Wales family. Camilla called an urgent meeting with palace advisors to try to restore some sense of the old order. And Charles's response was basically, let it unfold, it's already begun. That's not a king asserting control. That's a king who knows the decision has already been made. Let's go back to that garden at Kensington Palace. William's speech wasn't just about Charlotte, it was a declaration of intent. He said the crown isn't a relic from the past. It's a living promise of service, and that promise belongs to the future. He talked about evolving tradition instead of abandoning it, and then he brought his daughter forward and said she would begin attending engagements with her mother, learning about service, and helping shape a new vision. This is not how royal children have traditionally been introduced to public life. Usually, there's a much slower progression, a careful testing of the waters, and a respect for the hierarchy that places the direct heir first and everyone else in supporting roles. But here was William elevating Charlotte in a way that suggested she's not just going to be a background figure. She's being prepared for real responsibility, possibly even rivaling George in terms of public presence and influence. The photo spread instantly across the internet. Charlotte standing beside her father, looking composed beyond her years. She had this modest smile that somehow reminded people of both Diana and Queen Elizabeth. Social media went absolutely wild, and the message was crystal clear. This family is the future, and the future is starting now, whether the current king and queen like it or not. What's easy to miss in all the focus on William and Charlotte is Catherine's role in all of this. She stood beside William during the announcement, calm and steady, her hand on George's back in this quietly reassuring gesture that showed unity. But behind the scenes, reports suggest she's been anything but passive. Catherine has apparently been studying royal dynamics for years, and what we're seeing now looks like the result of a very carefully planned strategy. She reportedly commissioned public polls months before the announcement to gauge support for Charlotte taking on a bigger role, and the results showed strong approval. She and William review public reactions and media coverage every single night, adjusting their approach. When Camilla pushed for influence, Catherine chose silence. When asked about the tensions, she said nothing. But that silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. Catherine's popularity isn't manufactured or fake. It's built on years of genuine moments. The hospital visits, the way she interacts with children, the obvious warmth she has with her own kids. People respond to that because it feels real. And that authenticity gives her a kind of power that titles can't give. She's not just William's wife or George and Charlotte's mother. She's become the strategic center of this whole operation, the person who understands that the monarchy can't survive by clinging to the past. It has to evolve, and she's making sure it evolves in a direction that secures her children's future. The irony in all of this is that Camilla's position was supposed to be the culmination of a long, difficult journey. She endured the affair allegations, the divorce, the public anger after Diana's death, and years of careful image rehabilitation. She became queen consort. She made it. But the crown she helped Charles achieve is now being shaped by forces she can't control. And the influence she fought for is slipping away to a woman who never had to fight for public affection in the first place. Catherine just has it naturally, and that has to sting. Charles, for his part, seems caught between duty and reality. He waited his entire life to be king, and now that he is, the role is being redefined right around him. His health is reportedly a concern. He's missed key events. His public engagements have dropped. And into that vacuum, William has stepped with confidence and a clear vision. When William skipped an important meeting Charles hosted to visit a children's cancer unit in Manchester instead, the media coverage of William's visit absolutely dwarfed the attention given to the king's event. Whether or not that was intentional, it sent a signal about priorities, about where the energy of the monarchy actually lives. This generational shift isn't just symbolic, it's practical. The people who will carry the monarchy forward are already doing the work, and the public is responding. Charlotte's emergence is part of that, but so is George's quiet presence. During the announcement, he stood nearby, watching, taking it all in. He didn't look jealous or uncomfortable. He looked like someone who understands his role and is secure enough in it to share the spotlight with his sister. That's not accidental. That's parenting. That's Catherine and William deliberately raising their children to see the monarchy as a shared responsibility rather than a competition. What we're watching is the early stages of a reign that hasn't officially begun yet. Charles still holds the title. Camilla still wears the crown. But the momentum, the public imagination, the direction of the institution, all of it has shifted to Kensington Palace. The old guard isn't gone, but their influence has been quietly, systematically reduced. And the announcement about Charlotte wasn't just about a little girl starting her first official duties. It was about cementing a new royal order. one that looks forward instead of back, one that understands the crown has to earn its place in people's hearts rather than just assuming it. The question now is how Charles and Camilla respond. Do they accept the new reality and find a way to work within it? Or do they continue to resist and risk looking increasingly irrelevant? Camilla's instinct seems to be to fight, to reassert the hierarchy, to remind everyone that she and Charles are still the king and queen. But every attempt to do that runs up against the simple fact that the public has already moved on. They're interested in William and Catherine. They're charmed by Charlotte and George. They're watching the future take shape. And the present, represented by Charles and Camilla, feels increasingly like an interlude rather than an era. Charles's comment, "Let it unfold." It has already begun, suggests he understands this on some level. He knows the transition is happening whether he blesses it or not. The question is whether that understanding brings peace or just resignation. Imagine waiting your whole life for something and then realizing it's slipping away before you've really had a chance to define it. That's a hard thing to sit with. And whatever you think of Charles, that's got to be difficult. For Camilla, it's different. She didn't inherit this role through bloodline. She earned it through persistence, through weathering storms that would have broken most people, through staying by Charles's side when the entire world seemed to be against her. And now, just when she's reached the summit, she's watching her stepson and his wife claim the future in a way that leaves her on the margins. The meeting she called with palace advisors, the push to reassert the old order, that's not pettiness. That's desperation. That's someone who sees the thing she fought for being taken away and doesn't know how to stop it. But here's what makes this whole situation so compelling from the outside. Nobody's actually doing anything wrong. William isn't staging a coup. He's not undermining his father in any overt way. He's just doing the job, showing up, connecting with people, raising his children to understand service, making speeches that resonate. The fact that this feels like a threat to Charles and Camilla says more about their own position than it does about William's actions. If the king were secure in his role, his son's popularity wouldn't feel like a problem. If the queen consort had genuine public affection, she wouldn't need to fight for influence behind closed doors. The Kensington Palace announcement revealed all of this because of when and how it happened. Not at a formal event with the full family present, not with a coordinated statement from the palace, but at a garden party in the summer air, with William speaking from the heart and Catherine standing beside him and Charlotte stepping forward into a role nobody, outside their inner circle, knew was coming. The spontaneity might have been somewhat staged. These things usually are, but the message was genuine. This is the future. It's already here, and the people who aren't part of it are going to have to figure out how to live with that. Charlotte herself seems remarkably ready for what's being asked of her. The comparisons to Diana and Queen Elizabeth aren't just about physical resemblance, though people definitely see that. It's about a quality she projects. This combination of warmth and steadiness that makes people want to root for her. She's young, but she's being prepared in a way that suggests her parents see her as essential to the monarchy's future, not just a supporting player in George's story. That's a significant shift in how royal daughters have traditionally been positioned. And it speaks to William and Catherine's understanding that the crown needs all the credible, compelling representatives it can get. The silence from Clarence House continues. No statement, no warm words, no acknowledgement of Charlotte's new role from her grandfather, the king, or her step-grandmother, the queen. And that silence more than anything confirms that this announcement was not coordinated, not approved, not part of some family agreement. It was a unilateral move by the Wales family, and the king and queen were either blindsided or chose not to participate. Either way, the image of a unified royal family took another hit, and the fault lines that have been forming for months are now visible to everyone. What comes next is the practical reality of Charlotte's new duties. She'll start attending engagements with Catherine, learning the rhythms of royal service, being introduced to the public not as a cute kid in a pretty dress, but as someone who will one day carry significant responsibility. The media will cover every appearance. The public will track her growth. And with each event, the contrast between the rising generation and the fading one will become harder to ignore. Charles and Camilla will still have their roles, their titles, their place in the order of things, but the energy, the attention, the sense of where the monarchy is heading, all of that now belongs to William and Catherine and their children. The crown is being reborn, as William said in his speech, not by abandoning tradition, but by evolving it. And evolution by its nature leaves some things behind. Charles and Camilla aren't being pushed out, they're just being passed by. The future arrived on a summer afternoon at Kensington Palace, and it wore the face of a young girl stepping forward while her father spoke about promises and service and what the crown still means. The old guard can resist, can call meetings, can try to reassert the hierarchy, but the public has already chosen. The media has already shifted. The staff is already realigned. The transition isn't coming, it happened. And the only people who seem not to have gotten the memo are the ones still sitting in Clarence House, waiting for things to go back to the way they were.